Hey everybody, it's Mike. It's Thursday, October 21st, 2021. And as many of you know, Peter Jackson released a new trailer to promote his quote, documentary Get Back, which is going to premiere as a three-part series. Part 1 will be on November 25th, and then Part 2 on the 26th, and then Part 3 on November 27th, and it's going to premiere on Disney+. So I took a look at the new trailer, and I have some observations which I'm going to take you through in just a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to mention two emails that came into me from sources that I have. And the first source is well-versed in Egyptian mythology and ritual, and in their email, they offered their insights and said that the whole Egyptian aspect of what Billy is involved in is embedded in Peter's trailer. And one of the interesting things that my source pointed out is to take a look at how Peter has presented Get Back, and to take a look at what we are to assume is a G, but actually can also be viewed as an S. So set back. And of course, Set goes back to Egyptian lore, Osiris, Horus, Set. And I did a video a couple of weeks back, Billy Shear's Osiris, Horus, and Sex Magic. The link is down below. And in that video, I talk about some of the new information in the updated version of the Memoirs of Billy Shears, which became available last month on September 9th. My source mentioned that Set Back is an encoded reference to let us know that Set is supremely blessed and back. So instead of me trying to take everybody through this, I asked my source if they wouldn't mind working with me behind the scenes. They don't want to do this publicly, so I'll be the front person, to go through their email and to make sure that I understand exactly all the dots that they have connected, and then I can present that to my audience. I would like to get this presentation out before November 25th, but I can't make any promises, although I am going to try very hard to do that. So the whole Egyptian aspect is getting weirder and weirder and more involved, and we're starting to see it now because there are people out there, very smart people like my source, who recognize this stuff and are able to decode it. Right now, we're scheduled to get together the first week of November, and I've asked them to walk me through their email to make sure that I capture everything that I need to capture so that I can present it. My second source is a film and video researcher, and when the new trailer came out, I emailed them, and I asked if they could take a look at it and email me back with some observations, and they wrote me and said there is obvious use of advanced technology to create the quote documentary, and this is in reference to CGI, artificial intelligence, etc. I asked my source if they would be open to coming on the show to do a 45-minute to 1-hour presentation where we can dig in to the trailer and he could point out all of those things that point to the advanced technology being used in the film, and he agreed to do that. So the plan is to get together next month, again early next month in November, and I'm also going to try to get this presentation out before November 25th. And again, I cannot make any promises because I have a lot of stuff going on, but I will work hard to try to do that. Okay? So with that, what I'd like to do now is take you through my observations, and after watching this trailer, I stand by my position that Peter Jackson is indeed revising Beatle history, specifically the whole Let It Be period. And of course, he cannot do that unless he has the green light from Billy to do so. The new trailer is 3 minutes and 57 seconds in runtime. And when we add the numbers up, 3 plus 5 plus 7 equals 15, 1 plus 5 equals 6, And of course, the number 6 is the number that Billy associates with himself as William, versus the number 9, which he associates with playing the character of Paul McCartney. And throughout the trailer, the numbers 3, 6, and 9 are very prominent. And in my other videos, I have discussed why 3, 6, and 9 are very important. They are believed to be very powerful numbers in the occult, and they are believed to be fundamental in the creation of the universe and influence other numbers. The numbers 3, 6, and 9 are not just specific to the press releases and the trailers that Peter is putting out, but they are also very prominent during the Beatles timeline as well as into Billy's solo career. Okay, so let me move to the next slide, and I'll start taking you through some of my observations. And this slide is titled Beatle Cinderella Narratives. Now, the first 5 bullets I have covered in detail in my big presentation, Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music? But I wanted to revisit them because there is a common theme here. And the theme is that the Beatles were able to pull off superhuman, supernatural feats with regard to recording in very, very short time frames, and then turn out spectacular results. And as many of you who follow my work know, my position is, based upon my research, that the Beatles wrote very little of the music from the 1962 through 1966 period, if any of it, and studio musicians played on the recorded tracks from 62 through 66, although that model where outside songwriters were contributing to the music and studio musicians were playing on the recorded tracks extended from 1967 through 1970 as well, or the Billy period of the Beatle timeline. Okay, so the first Cinderella narrative is that Lennon and McCartney wrote 100 original songs between 1956 and 1962, but not one of these songs was appealing to George Martin when they signed with EMI and met George Martin in 1962. And then we have the Mercy Beat article from the August-September 1962 edition, where it tells us the Beatles will fly to London to make recordings at EMI Studios. They will be recording numbers that have been specifically written for the group, which they have received from their recording manager, George Martin. This is a smoking gun, folks. They will record numbers that have been specifically written for the group, which they have received from their recording manager, George Martin. So let me take a moment and play 2 clips, and these clips were both in my big documentary, Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music? The first clip is from The Complete Beatles, a 1980s documentary where we are told that Lennon and McCartney wrote 100 original songs. And the second clip, we're going to hear from George Martin and what he thought of their music. Let's take a listen.
John and Paul had written at least 100 songs together since they met in 1956. But they hadn't recorded any, original or otherwise. Not until they went to Hamburg again in 1960 did they make their first record, and then only as a backup group for their friend Tony Sheridan. The result? An awkward rock and roll arrangement of My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean.
What I said to Brian was, if you want me to judge them on what you're playing me, I'm sorry, I have to turn you down. And he was so disappointed. I felt really sorry for him, actually, because he's an earnest young man.
And you must have liked him then?
I did like him. And I said, but I tell you what, I gave him a lifeline. I said, if you want to bring them down from Liverpool, I'll give them an hour in the studio, okay? They had this wonderful charisma. They made you feel good to be with them. Mm. And I thought their music was rubbish.
Okay, so my second example of a very contrived narrative has to do with their debut album, Please Please Me, which was released on March 22nd, 1963. And of course, March 22nd is 322, which is the Skull and Bones number it is also a reference to Genesis 3:22. And the official story tells us that 10 of the 14 songs that were on that album were recorded in a single day in less than 13 hours. So let me say that again. 10 of the 14 songs were recorded in a single day in less than 13 hours. So 10 songs in 13 hours. That's not believable, folks. The 4 songs that were not recorded that day were prior releases as singles. They were Love Me Do, P.S. I Love You, Please Please Me, and Ask Me Why. And then we get into the Rubber Soul sessions, and I cover this in great detail in my presentation, Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music? And the official narrative around Rubber Soul tells us that the Beatles had no backlog of songs. And so to record Rubber Soul, they had to come into the studio on October 11th, and they had to write from scratch, rehearse, arrange, record, and mix 16 brand new original compositions, new songs, in 30 days. And I concluded in my presentation that that is not even remotely possible. And this is the narrative that led me to do a deep dive and to dig in and to determine that the Beatles did not write their own music, again, especially between 1962 and 1966, although with the advent of Sgt. Pepper and more so with the White Album, we see more original compositions, specifically from John and George, and we see them playing more on the recorded tracks, starting with Sgt. Pepper, going into the White Album, and then through Let It Be. But for Rubber Soul, no. Those songs were already written, already recorded, and mixed, and all the Beatles had to do in that 30-day period of time between October 11th and November 11th was to get the vocals down. Okay? Then we have the India narrative, which is ridiculous as well, where we are told that the Beatles wrote over 30 songs while they were on retreat in India. Now remember, when they went to India, the premise wasn't that they were going there to write songs, they were going there to attend activities and participate in whatever this retreat was all about. Yet we're told that in between all these activities and all of these interactions and everything else they had to do, eat and sleep, that they wrote over 30 songs. Yet, as a band, they weren't even there together for the entire 2 months. Ringo left after 2 weeks, Billy departed after a month, and only John and George lasted 60 days. And what's important about this is not so much Ringo, but Billy, who is obviously one of the primary songwriters, he wasn't there for half the time. So that story falls apart. And then we have the Esher demo, where we are told that the Beatles recorded 27 songs, 2 plus 7 equals 9, in one unknown day in May of 1968 at George's bungalow as a lead-in to the White Album sessions. Now, anyone who understands the process of writing music and recording music will know that to record 27 songs in one day, even though they're demos, is not possible. And so my conclusion was that these songs were recorded over a period of time, and then the official narrative attributed the demo to one day. In other words, the narrative was, again, trying to paint them as supernatural, superhuman geniuses that can do this type of work. 27 songs in one day. And the other problem with this scenario is that this is quite a feat. Yet, the day in May that they allegedly did this is unknown. There is no recorded date as to when this happened. Okay, so another crazy narrative that is contrived and is not believable. It's not credible. And then as I was watching Peter's new trailer, something very interesting popped up. And in the trailer, and I'm going to get into this in a bit, he shows a calendar where the Beatles arrive to do the Let It Be sessions on January 2nd, and they have January 19th and January 20th etched out, marked on the calendar as 2 days of live shows, where at least according to the trailer, based upon the way it's being presented, these live shows, scheduled for January 19th and the 20th of 1969, were to showcase the new songs that were going to be written and recorded during the Let It Be sessions. So you arrive on January 2nd, you have really a sketchy backlog of music, and I'll get into that in a bit, and you're going to play a chunk of these songs on January 19th and January 20th, like 3 weeks later. That is not believable to me. In fact, it's incredibly unbelievable. All right, so we're going to get into this piece in a bit because I believe that this piece of the narrative in Peter's trailer, which I'm assuming is making its way into the film, is revisionist history, because I don't remember specific dates for live shows. I remember the Beatles talking about doing a concert at some later date. There were no specified dates because they had to get through the Let It Be sessions. Yet Peter's documentary appears, again, based upon the trailer, that the January 19th and January 20th dates for the live shows were already determined. And the Beatles were working toward that date starting on January 2nd. It's not possible. Okay? And I look at it as a glaring hole in the narrative if this is going to be a major premise of what Peter's documentary is going to be about. Okay? All right, so let me move to the next slide. This is something I've been wanting to point out for a while. So we are familiar with this image of the Beatles during Let It Be, whether it be the old film or whether it be the film that Peter is putting together and is going to release next month. But I can tell you, as a songwriter, as a musician, as somebody who records, that you cannot record properly with this configuration. And let me explain why. This is okay if you're rehearsing, but to record, no way. See all these microphones? Here's a mic here. This is for Billy's vocal. Here's a microphone here to record Billy's acoustic guitar. We have an overhead mic here. We have a mic here by Ringo. Ringo is here with his drum kit. We have a microphone here going to this Fender amp, which George is playing through. And here's George's vocal mic. John is mic'd. Now, if you're going to try to record with all of these microphones in this very, very confined space, what's going to happen is you're going to have bleed through everywhere. Everywhere. So as an example, let's just say Billy's playing. Billy's microphone here, that's recording his acoustic guitar, is going to pick up his voice. It's going to pick up the drums. It's going to pick up George playing through his Fender. And it's going to pick up John playing. And not only that, but his microphone for his guitar is also going to pick up his vocal, and his vocal mic is going to pick up his guitar, and his vocal mic is going to pick up everything else going on around him. This is not how you record. This is how you record a mess. So this scene, this imagery that we see is really all about illusion. It's about showing the Beatles as a tight group, as a band, seeing them all together. But in reality, this is not at all how you would record. How would you record? For those that are not familiar with recording, if Billy's going to record two of us as an example, he's going to sit in the studio and it's just going to be him. And he's going to have his acoustic guitar mic'd, and that's what's going to be recorded. Because you don't want all of this bleed through. You don't want extraneous noise coming in from other instruments. You don't even want people moving around in the room because the microphone will pick that up. So this image that we see with Let It Be is something that it's propaganda. It's something that's put out there to give the illusion that even though this was a rough time for the band, setting aside what Peter's going to tell us, I'm talking about the true history of the Let It Be sessions, that they were still a group. Okay, so with that, let me take you through some of the screen captures. So the trailer starts out by telling us that in January 1969, a film crew was given unprecedented access to document the Beatles at work. And just take a look at the clarity here, the colors. And remember, the original film was shot in 16 millimeter. Next slide. This resulted in over 57 hours of the most intimate footage ever shot of the band. Now we're seeing 57 hours. Depending upon the press release, it's 55 hours, 56 hours, 57 hours. But the reason why they're using 57 here is because 5 plus 7 is 12 and 1 plus 2 equals 3. And this is linked back to Billy's recent album, McCartney 3. And I did an entire analysis on McCartney 3 going back a number of months ago. The net of it is Billy is telling us that his runway is short. And he's going to be departing the physical plane, the physical world, in the not-so-distant future. Okay, let me move to the next slide. The footage has been locked in a vault for over half a century, unseen. Now, I talked about this in the presentation I did on Peter's film. It's a 90-minute presentation. It goes back a couple of months ago. And I believe the title of the video, I'll put the link down below, is Peter Jackson Revising Beatle History. It seems incredibly impossible that this footage has remained unseen for 50 years, that nobody has watched it, nobody has looked at it. And more importantly, that this footage, which was not used in the original film, has now become the de facto source for what the Beatles' Let It Be sessions in that period is all about. So in essence, take the original film and just throw that out. And now we're going to go with outtakes. Right? Because that's what they would be, outtakes. It would be footage that was deemed not good enough to be included in the original film. Because if it was good enough, it would be in the original film. And again, this is something that I talk about in the presentation going back a couple of months ago. And again, the link will be down below. And then it says, unseen until now. And then we're told the Beatles have less than 3 weeks to write and record a new album. So there's that supernatural, superhuman feat type of abilities that the Beatles have. Magical, geniuses, brilliant. Only they can do this. It's the same narrative that's behind the Rubber Soul sessions. But here again, we have the number 3. And again, it links back to Billy's album, McCartney 3. Next slide. They will film a concert of the new songs for a TV show and a documentary. They haven't played live for an audience in 3 years. So there's the number 3 again, and back to McCartney 3. So let's take a moment and let's revisit the official narrative that I remember about the Let It Be sessions and what was being planned. So the source of this information is from Wikipedia, and it's from a version of Wikipedia that I downloaded and saved as a PDF, because what I suspect is going to happen over time is these Wikipedia entries are going to be revised to reflect the new narrative. So what I've been doing over time is just downloading the old stuff and keeping that as my source before somebody goes in and starts tinkering with the wording. So the original narrative tells us that the film was originally planned as a television documentary that would accompany a concert broadcast. The plan was to give a live performance featuring new songs, broadcast as a television special, and recorded for release as an album. The new material would be designed to work well in concert without the benefit of overdubs or other recording tricks. It was agreed to start rehearsals without a firm decision on the concert location. Again, this is important. Start rehearsals on January 2nd without a firm decision on the concert location. Plans for the concert broadcast were dropped. The project then became a feature film production. The songs are works in progress, with discussions among the band members about ways to improve them. Okay, so the narrative from Wikipedia, which is telling us about the original 1970 film, says that the songs are works in progress. In other words, they're not complete songs. They're works in progress. The film provided glimpses into the dynamics that would lead to the breakup. So again, I talk about this in the presentation I did on Peter's film. It was not a happy time for the Beatles. There was a lot of tension during that period. And then Wikipedia tells us the infamous exchange between McCartney and Harrison took place on January 6th, and Harrison walked out for 5 days, starting on January 10th, and returned after January 15th. So he was out of the studio between January 10th and January 15th. The concert broadcast idea was abandoned. It was decided that the footage being shot would be used to make a feature film. Okay, that's the narrative I remember. That's the traditional narrative. So in Peter's film, he shows this calendar. And it shows January 2nd. January 1st, obviously, is New Year's Day. And live shows on January 19th and January 20th. So you're going to show up in the studio on January 2nd with songs that are works in progress, and you're going to be ready and geared up for live shows 3 weeks later. It doesn't sound possible to me. So we know that Billy and George have their argument on January 6th, and Wikipedia tells us that the tensions mounted, and on January 10th, George walks out. And he walks out through the 15th, and he's back in the studio on the 16th. So that makes this, the live shows, the 19th and 20th, even more impossible. Because George walked out of the studio between the 10th and the 15th. How were they going to rehearse the songs if their guitarist wasn't there to rehearse the songs? And what I did here was to include the wording from the Wikipedia article. The infamous exchange between McCartney and Harrison occurred on Monday, January 6th. Around lunchtime on Friday the 10th, tensions came to a head, and Harrison told the others that he was leaving the band. And this is where we get the discussion about Eric Clapton possibly replacing George. And this was an idea that appealed to John Lennon. Although down here, and you can't see it because you've got my picture-in-picture here, it tells us that there was a meeting on January 15th, and George agreed to come back and to abandon the whole concert thing and all that stuff. And it also says that Eric Clapton stated that he was not going to replace George because he was a good friend of George and he just wouldn't do that. Okay, so when we read the original narrative, the narrative that most of us who are Beatle fans remember, this doesn't make any sense. And please leave a comment down below if you recall specific dates, because I don't. I remember this. I remember it was an idea to do these things, but they had to get through the sessions first, and that would make sense. But to come into the sessions on January 2nd and then say on the 19th and 20th, we're going to play songs from the sessions, I don't even see how that's possible. I really don't. Maybe they might be able to bang out a song or two and play it on the 19th and the 20th and then rely on older songs to play. But even then, they would have to rehearse the older songs. It just makes no sense to me. Okay, so I do believe that this part of what is being presented in Peter's trailer, and if this is making its way as a major theme in the film, I think it's problematic. Okay? All right, so then the trailer goes on to tell us, experience the 3-part event, the number 3. And it begins on November 25th. Remember, it's 3 days, the 25th, 26th, and 27th. And of course, November 25th is 11, because November is the 11th month. The 25th day, 25. 11 plus 25 is 36. And we have the number 9. And here's a blow-up of the calendar. And live shows in Pythagorean numerology is the number 6. This is the number of man. January 19th, 1969, regroups to 36, and 3 plus 6 equals 9. And of course, 9 represents change, transformation, endings. It's also the number that Billy associates with playing the character of Paul McCartney. And January 20th is the number 10. And 10 represents completion and beginnings. And if we go back to my presentation where I decode Billy's McCartney 3 album, the number 10 becomes more prominent. And what's being communicated to us is that the old ways are coming to an end and there is a new age coming forth, along with representing Billy's own departing and then his making his way into the afterlife. And then we have this capture from the new trailer, and we see the clapperboard and the number 10. Completion and beginnings. And Billy with a big smile on his face. Here's another screen capture. Billy's pointing up to the clapperboard, and it has the number 18 on it. 1 plus 8 equals 9. And again, 9 is the number that he associates with him playing the part of Paul McCartney. It also is the number that represents transformation, change, and endings. Let's go to the next slide. This one is very interesting to me because Billy Preston appears to be superimposed. Now, when I have my source come on to do the presentation, I'm sure we will talk more about this. But if you take a close look at the outline of Billy, especially here around the face area, his hands, this scene never existed. This scene was created. And I'm just a layman looking at this, and I can tell that this is not natural. Okay, so this is some of the trickery. This is some of the technology that's going to be used to create this new narrative. Then there's this screenshot, which I found interesting. We have the typed out lyrics to The Long and Winding Road, and then below we have lyrics to Get Back. And we can see that the typed text is blurry, yet the written text is very clear. And what I noticed by looking at this capture is the written text appears to float above the typed text. And then I had to ask myself, if I go back to the original film, all of these panning effects and all of these different cuts that Peter Jackson's incorporating into this trailer, and what is obviously going to also be in the film, they didn't exist. So I asked myself, where did this come from? What camera took this shot? And then I took this screen capture, and this was interesting to me because when I take a look at John Lennon's eyes, his eyes are off. The right eye is drifting to the right, giving a lazy eye effect. So I don't remember John having a lazy eye, so I'm thinking that this is a glitch in the AI or the CGI or whatever technology is being used. And when you take a look at John, and then take a look at the microphone, there's a difference in clarity. This doesn't even look real to me. This actually looks like CGI to me. Okay, so this is just something else that caught my eye. And again, when we do the presentation with my video and film researcher, we'll take a closer look into these types of things. Right now, I'm just giving you my layman's view of this. I'm not an expert in film and video, but I've been looking at a lot of this stuff now ever since the Peter Jackson film was announced, and I'm starting to pick up on things. And then the last slide, we have the Beatles drumhead, and we have some numbers here. We see 2-1-69, and this is not the American formatting. This is the British or European formatting. So it's January 2nd, 1969. And when we break down January 2nd, 1969, it regroups to the number 9. And then why the 2 and the 1? 2 plus 1 equals 3. 2 and 1 is also 21, or the triple sevens. And this is the lightning flash of creation through the Kabbalah tree of life. And this goes back to Aleister Crowley. Okay? All right, so those are my observations. And I'd love to hear what you guys think. The comment section is going to be open. You guys have a great day, and thanks for listening.